In the War of Succession, which followed the death of Henry IV, the Ponce de León family supported Juana la Beltraneja against the Infanta Isabella, who would later be known as Isabella the Catholic. It may have been Rodrigo Ponce de León, the Duke of Cádiz, who ordered the first enlargement of the castle as a means of sustaining this type of interdynastic warfare. 2 defensive forewalls were built between towers with cross and orb embrasures, and escarpments were added at the 2 northernmost towers, together with an access route via the castle's first recorded gate.
The next enlargement was undertaken when the castle was being used as a military base during the Comuneros Revolt of 1521. On this occasion, the Ponce de León family were fighting the authorities in Seville. This stage saw the construction of the moat around the castle and the artillery-resistant forewall, equipped with gun emplacements for defensive fire. A small guardhouse was also built onto the forewall, erected during the second enlargement process. This created a dogleg entrance into the castle, which we'll be able to see later in the visit.
The last enlargement, at the beginning of the 16th century, entailed the building of the polygonal stretch of wall by which we're going to enter the castle. This more recent section has numerous embrasures of different types, including one with 3 separate openings and several letterbox-style slits. Considering the efforts made in earlier phases to reinforce the defences in this part of the castle, this must have been the most vulnerable sector.
From the end of the 16th century onwards, when the establishment of a stable monarchy deprived fortresses of much of their defensive importance, the castle began to fall into a state of abandon. We know that later, in 1743, when Manuel Ponce de León took possession, his steward merely walked around the property. This may mean that there was not even a gate to open. When the House of Arcos died out in 1789, the situation became more serious. The castle was taken over by the Duke of Osuna, and in the 19th century it was abandoned. Presumably, it was then that material began to be stolen. The property was also used as a cemetery, which worsened its state of repair even more. Ana Gomez, manageress of the Castle of Mairena, describes the situation.
Before the introduction of specific legislation protecting historic heritage assets, it was normal practice to exploit abandoned historic buildings as a source of building materials, as new settlements, or a shelter for livestock. Photographs taken at the beginning of the 20th century, when Bonser arrived at the Castle of Mairena, showed just how ruined and deserted the fortress was. That disastrous state of repair, now irreversible, is still evident in the part known as the Torre de Ruida. But, although no maintenance was being carried out, the castle was nevertheless inhabited. The notes Bonser wrote during the excavations and restoration work in the castle tell how when he arrived, the parade ground was covered in traces of human occupancy. He recycled this material to convert the fortress into a museum. We don't know if these structures date from the same period as the castle itself, or were merely rooms belonging to tenants who, when Bonser arrived, asked permission to move their dwellings to the moat on the town side of the complex.
When George Bonsor arrived in Mairena in 1902, the castle stood apart from the houses in the town. To retain that isolated, majestic presence, Bonsor also purchased the surrounding olive groves. Years after his death, his widow, Dolores Simó, the curator of the castle, had to sell the northeastern part of the moat to meet maintenance costs. Since then, that stretch of moat has been occupied by buildings like the one we came through when we entered the castle. Dolores Simó also had to sell some paintings by Valdés Leal, a transaction she would always regret.
It was more than I could bear to let those paintings leave the castle.
Now stand on the staircase to the right, next to the door leading into the castle, and press number 4 on your keypad to listen to a commentary on the building's architectonics.